You've heard the whispers, haven't you? The kind that ripple through a crowded room, like an electric current, making everyone stop mid-sentence to stare. That's exactly what happened when she walked into the gala, her head held high, her arm linked with a man no one recognized. It wasn't just the diamond necklace, glinting under the chandelier lights, or the way her dress seemed custom-made for revenge. No, it was the sheer audacity of it all. Everyone had bet on her staying quiet, staying small, staying his. But here she was, proving them all wrong in the most unexpected way possible. Let me take you back to where it all began. Picture this: a young woman named Clara, who grew up with nothing but dreams and determination. She worked hard, clawed her way up, and eventually caught the eye of Alexander Reed, one of the richest CEOs in the city. To the outside world, their marriage looked like something out of a fairy tale. Clara, the poor girl turned trophy wife, and Alexander, the powerful billionaire who swept her off her feet. But behind closed doors, things weren't as perfect as they seemed. Whispers of control, manipulation, and secrets started to surface, though no one dared say them too loudly. After all, Alexander Reed wasn't just rich. He was untouchable, or so everyone thought. Clara's life became a delicate balancing act. On one side, there was the glittering facade of wealth and privilege, charity galas, designer gowns, and vacations in places most people only see in magazines. On the other side, there was the reality, a suffocating relationship where every move she made felt scrutinized, every decision questioned. Friends whispered about how unhappy she looked at events, how her smile never quite reached her eyes. But what could she do? Divorce Alexander Reed? That idea was laughable. Or at least, it was until now. The night of the gala changed everything. It wasn't just any event. It was the event of the year. The kind where invitations were framed and displayed like trophies. Everyone who mattered would be there. Politicians, celebrities, business moguls, and socialites. And of course, Alexander Reed was expected to make an appearance. He always did, arriving late, dressed impeccably, and commanding attention without even trying. This year, however, the spotlight wasn't his to claim. Not entirely. When Clara stepped into the grand ballroom, the room went silent. For a moment, time seemed to freeze. There she was, looking more radiant than anyone had ever seen her, standing beside a man whose presence was as magnetic as it was mysterious. Who was he? Where had she found him? And why, after years of playing the dutiful wife, was she suddenly flaunting someone new in front of everyone? The questions buzzed in the air like static. But Clara didn't offer answers. Instead, she smiled, a real smile this time, and let the speculation run wild. It's easy to imagine what people were thinking. Some probably assumed it was a publicity stunt, a desperate attempt to regain some semblance of independence. Others might have guessed it was a calculated move, a way to send a message to Alexander, but those closest to her knew better. They remembered the days when Clara used to talk about wanting more than just money and status. They recalled the fire in her eyes before it dimmed, before Alexander's influence reshaped her into someone almost unrecognizable. Could this be her reclaiming herself, or was it something else entirely? Alexander's reaction was worth noting. When he finally arrived, fashionably late as usual, he stopped dead in his tracks. His expression shifted from confident arrogance to something darker, unreadable. For a man who prided himself on being in control, seeing Clara with another man must have felt like a slap in the face. He recovered quickly, of course. A man like Alexander doesn't show weakness, not publicly anyway. But those who knew him well noticed the subtle tension in his jaw, The way his gaze lingered on Clara, longer than necessary. Whatever game she was playing, he clearly hadn't anticipated it. As the night unfolded, the dynamics between these three individuals became impossible to ignore. Clara moved through the crowd with grace, introducing her companion to key figures, while maintaining an air of mystery. Her new partner, tall, dark-haired and charming, seemed completely at ease, as if he belonged in this world of excess and intrigue. Meanwhile, Alexander watched from afar, his usual charisma tinged with an edge of frustration. It was clear that whatever was happening between them wasn't over. Not by a long shot, but here's the thing. None of this happened overnight. Behind Clara's bold entrance lies a story of resilience, heartbreak, and courage. How did she go from being the poor girl everyone underestimated to the woman turning heads at the gala? What drove her to take such a risky step, knowing full well the consequences it might bring? And perhaps most importantly, who is the man by her side? And what role does he play in her journey toward freedom? To understand all of this, we need to delve deeper into Clara's past, the sacrifices she made, the battles she fought silently, and the moments that shaped her into the person she is today. We'll also explore Alexander's rise to power, the tactics he used to maintain his empire, and the cracks in his carefully constructed facade. Because let's face it, no one becomes untouchable without leaving a trail of broken promises and hidden truths. And then there's the question of trust. Can Clara really rely on her new companion? Or is he just another player in a dangerous game? Is he helping her break free or using her for his own agenda? These are the kinds of questions that keep us hooked, that make us wonder what happens next. Because deep down, we all love a good underdog story, a tale of someone rising above adversity and proving the doubters wrong. But this isn't just about revenge or redemption. It's about finding yourself again after losing pieces of your soul along the way. So, as the gala reaches its climax and tensions reach a boiling point, we're left with more questions than answers. Will Clara's bold move pay off? Or will it come crashing down around her? What will Alexander do when pushed to his limits? And what secrets lie beneath the surface, waiting to be uncovered? One thing is certain, nothing will ever be the same. Again, stay tuned, because this is just the beginning. The rest of the story unfolds in ways you won't see coming, filled with twists, turns, and moments that will leave you breathless. Trust me, you won't want to miss what happens next. To truly understand Clara's transformation, we need to rewind a few years. Back then, she was just another ambitious young woman trying to make ends meet. She worked 2 jobs, juggled student loans, and spent her nights studying under the dim light of a secondhand lamp. Her dream, to become someone who could inspire others, someone who proved that hard work could rewrite your destiny. And for a while, it seemed like she was on track. Then Alexander entered her life. A whirlwind of charm, confidence, and promises. He swept her off her feet, convincing her that he saw something special in her. At first, it felt like love. But over time, that feeling morphed into something darker, more suffocating. Alexander wasn't just rich. He was a master manipulator. He had a way of making you feel lucky to be around him, as if his attention alone elevated your worth. For Clara, this dynamic started subtly. It began with small comments about how she dressed, or what she said at dinner parties. "You'll fit in better if you wear this," he'd say, handing her a designer gown. Or, "People might misunderstand you if you talk too much about your past." At first, she brushed it off, thinking he cared about her image because he wanted the best for her. But soon, those suggestions turned into rules, and those rules became chains. Her friends noticed the change before she did. They stopped hearing from her as often, and when they did, her voice lacked its usual spark. "Clara seems different," one of them remarked during a coffee catch-up. Different, yes, but not in a good way. The fire that once burned so brightly within her had been dimmed, replaced by a cautiousness that bordered on fear. Still, no one dared confront her directly. After all, Alexander Reed wasn't the kind of man you crossed. His reputation preceded him. Ruthless in business, calculating in relationships, and untouchable in every sense of the word. But even the strongest walls have cracks, and Clara found hers in the form of memories. Late at night, when Alexander was away on yet another business trip, she'd sit by the window and think about the person she used to be. She remembered the girl who dreamed big, who laughed without restraint, who believed she could conquer the world. That version of herself felt like a stranger now, buried under layers of expectations and compromises. Slowly, painfully, Clara realized she couldn't keep living like this. Something had to give. Enter Daniel Harper, the mysterious man by her side at the gala. Unlike Alexander, Daniel didn't come from money or power. He was an artist, someone who lived life on his own terms. Clara met him accidentally during one of her rare escapes from Alexander's controlled world. She'd wandered into a small gallery downtown, drawn by the vibrant colors of his paintings. Their conversation started innocently enough. Art, inspiration, the beauty of imperfection. But there was an honesty in Daniel's words that Clara hadn't experienced in years. For the first time in a long time, she felt seen. Their relationship developed slowly, cautiously. Clara knew the risks of getting close to anyone outside Alexander's circle. If he found out, the consequences would be severe. Yet, Daniel offered her something Alexander never had: freedom. With him, she could be herself, flawed, vulnerable, real. Over time, their bond deepened, and Clara began to entertain thoughts she'd long suppressed. What if she didn't have to stay trapped in this gilded cage forever? What if she could reclaim her life, piece by piece? Meanwhile, Alexander remained oblivious, or so it seemed. On the surface, he continued to play the role of the doting husband, showering Clara with gifts and public displays of affection. But beneath that polished exterior, cracks were beginning to show. Business deals weren't going as smoothly as they used to, and whispers of scandal hinted at trouble brewing behind the scenes. For a man accustomed to having everything under control, these developments were unsettling. Add Clara's growing distance to the mix, and you had a recipe for disaster. The tension between them reached a breaking point one evening. Weeks before the gala, Alexander had returned home unexpectedly, catching Clara packing a suitcase. "Where do you think you're going?" he asked, his tone icy calm. Clara froze, her heart pounding in her chest. She'd planned this moment countless times in her head, rehearsing what she would say, but standing there, face to face with the man who had controlled her life for so long, she faltered. "I can't do this anymore," she finally managed, her voice trembling. "I need to find myself again." For a split second, Alexander looked taken aback. Then his expression hardened. "You think you can leave me?" he sneered, stepping closer. "After everything I've given you, you'd throw it all away for what? Some midlife crisis fantasy." His words stung, but Clara held her ground. This was the moment she'd been building toward, the line she refused to cross back over. "It's not about what you've given me," she replied, surprising even herself with her resolve. "It's about what you've taken." That night marked a turning point. Clara left the house, leaving behind the life she'd known for years. It wasn't easy. Every step felt like walking through quicksand, but she pressed on, driven by a newfound determination, Daniel was waiting for her, offering not just shelter, but support. Together, they devised a plan. Clara wouldn't just disappear quietly. She would make a statement, one that would force everyone to see her for who she truly was. And thus, the idea for the gala entrance was born. As the date approached, anticipation built, not just among Clara and Daniel, but also within Alexander's inner circle. Rumors swirled about Clara's absence, fueling speculation about the state of their marriage. Alexander dismissed them publicly, maintaining his facade of composure. Privately, however, he grew increasingly agitated. He called old contacts, dug up information, and tried to locate Clara. All to no avail. Whoever she was with, wherever she was hiding, she had covered her tracks well. And then came the gala. As Clara descended the staircase, arm in arm with Daniel, the room collectively held its breath. The air crackled with unspoken questions and barely concealed hostility. Alexander's arrival only heightened the drama, his presence casting a shadow over the already charged atmosphere. For a moment, it seemed like the entire world was holding its breath, waiting to see what would happen next. What followed was a dance of power and pride, each move calculated, each glance loaded with meaning. Clara mingled effortlessly, introducing Daniel to key players and basking in the shockwaves rippling through the crowd. Meanwhile, Alexander watched, his mask slipping ever so slightly with each passing minute. The stakes were higher than ever, and neither side showed any sign of backing down. As the night wore on, tensions escalated. A confrontation seemed inevitable, though no one knew when or where it would occur. Whispers filled the room, speculating about what Alexander might do. Would he lash out publicly, risking his pristine image? Or would he wait, plotting his revenge in private? Whatever his next move, one thing was clear. Clara had struck a nerve, and the fallout was bound to be explosive. With every passing moment, the audience leaned closer, hanging on to every detail. How far would Clara go to reclaim her independence? Could Daniel truly protect her from Alexander's wrath? And most importantly, who would emerge victorious in this high-stakes game of power and pride? The answers lay just beyond the horizon, hidden in the shadows of secrets, yet to be revealed. The moment everyone had been waiting for finally arrived, when Alexander cornered Clara near the balcony. The noise of the gala faded into the background, as all eyes turned to them, though no one dared approach. Clara stood tall, her chin lifted. Despite the storm brewing in front of her, Daniel lingered nearby, his presence both a shield and a statement. Alexander's voice was low, but laced with venom. "You think this is over?" he hissed, his words cutting through the tension like a blade. "You're making a mistake you'll regret." Clara didn't flinch. Instead, she met his gaze head on, something she hadn't done in years. "No," she said firmly, her voice steady. "The only mistake I made was staying silent for so long." Her words hung in the air, sharp and unyielding. It was as if she'd taken everything she'd endured, the control, the manipulation, the loss of herself, and turned it into fuel for this single moment. The room seemed to hold its breath, watching the battle unfold. But then came the twist that no one saw coming. Alexander smirked, leaning in closer. "You really think you've won? That little artist boyfriend of yours has skeletons too, Clara. Did he tell you about his debts? Or how he conveniently left out the fact that he used to work for me?" The revelation hit like a thunderclap. Clara's expression faltered, just for a second, before she masked it with defiance. She glanced at Daniel, who looked uneasy, but didn't deny the accusation. It wasn't what Alexander said that hurt. It was the betrayal lurking beneath it. Had Daniel known all along? Was their relationship built on more than just connection and trust? For a fleeting moment, doubt crept into Clara's mind. But then she remembered why she'd come this far. This wasn't about Daniel or Alexander. It was about her reclaiming her life. She took a deep breath and stepped away from both men, creating space, not just physically, but emotionally. "You don't get to define me anymore," Clara said, her voice ringing clear across the hushed room. "Not either of you." With that, she walked toward the center of the ballroom, leaving behind the two men who had shaped her recent past. The crowd parted for her, murmurs rippling through the audience like waves. Some whispered admiration, others cast judgmental glances. But none of it mattered, because for the first time in years, Clara felt free. As she reached the edge of the dance floor, a familiar face appeared. Her best friend Mia, who had stood by her quietly during the darkest days. Without saying a word, Mia handed Clara a small envelope. Inside was a plane ticket to Paris, dated for the next morning. Tears welled up in Clara's eyes, as she realized Mia had been planning an escape route for her all along. "Go find yourself." "Again," Mia whispered, squeezing her hand. "We'll handle whatever comes next." With renewed resolve, Clara slipped out of the gala unnoticed, disappearing into the night. As the door closed behind her, the camera panned back to the chaos inside. Alexander seethed, his carefully constructed world crumbling around him. His reputation, once untouchable, was now marred by scandal and whispers of abuse. Meanwhile, Daniel faced his own reckoning, grappling with guilt over his secrets, and whether he'd truly helped Clara or merely complicated her journey further. In the days that followed, the fallout dominated headlines. Clara's bold move at the gala sparked conversations about power dynamics in relationships, independence, and the importance of self-worth. People admired her courage, even as they debated the complexities of her choices. For her part, Clara vanished from the public eye, retreating to Paris to rediscover the pieces of herself she'd lost. She painted, wrote, and explored the city streets, letting go of the weight she'd carried for so long. Months later, she re-emerged, not as Alexander Reed's ex-wife, but as Clara Bennett, a woman carving her own path. She started a foundation dedicated to helping others escape toxic relationships. Using her story to inspire change, her memoir became a bestseller, praised for its raw honesty and empowering message. As for Daniel, he eventually confessed his mistakes and sought redemption. Though their relationship remained complicated, they weren't lovers anymore, but they shared a bond forged in fire, one that reminded them both of how far they'd come. Alexander, on the other hand, faded into obscurity. Once revered, he became a cautionary tale of arrogance and entitlement. His empire crumbled under legal scrutiny, and the friends who had flocked to him in better times abandoned him without hesitation. In the end, his greatest downfall wasn't Clara's departure. It was his inability to see the cracks in his own foundation until it was too late. Looking back, Clara often reflected on that night at the gala. It wasn't just a moment of defiance. It was the beginning of her rebirth. She had learned that true strength doesn't come from fighting someone else. It comes from finding yourself amidst the chaos. And while the road ahead wasn't always easy, she knew she'd never return to the person she used to be. The story ends not with revenge or triumph, but with hope. Clara proved that even in the darkest moments, there's light waiting to break through. Her journey reminds us all that we have the power to rewrite our stories, no matter how impossible it may seem. And sometimes all it takes is one brave step to change everything.